Thursday Night Tailgate, where the spotlight is always on the positive. Tune in Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time to hear your favorite NFL legends, players, and coaches sharing their stories. Now back to Chris and Bob.
I wouldn't joke about anything else that happens here tonight.
All right, now joining us is singer-songwriter Kevin Chalfant. Kevin has been the lead singer for groups like 707, Steel Breeze, and I came to know and love his stuff when he became a member of the band back in the 90s called The Storm, along with former Journey members, guys like Greg Rollie, Ross Valory, and Steve Smith, who are both still with Journey, and guitarist Josh Ramos. Their song, I've Got a Lot to Learn About Love, was a top 10 hit back in 1991. In 2003, Kevin toured as the lead vocalist for the Alan Parsons Project. 2007, he released a CD titled Fly to Freedom, a 13-track solo CD covering his favorite Journey songs. Kevin spent some time with Journey Manager Herbie Herbert and Greg Rollie, checking out 49ers games from their owner's box, by the way, back in the 1980s, which we'll talk about here in a moment. And we're excited he is with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Kevin, Chris and Bob here. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, guys, man, it's great to be with you tonight.
So, Kevin, and you and I were communicating prior to the show, and you were telling me about your relationship with former Journey manager Herbie Herbert and being out in San Francisco and going and checking out the 49ers games from the owner's box with him, and later Greg Rollie joining you as well. But, take me back. How did you first meet Herbie?
Well, I had recorded a 707 record, a Megaforce, in Los Angeles with the producer Keith Olsen. And Jonathan Cain was in the studio working with his then wife, Tawny Cain, making a record with Keith, and I think Tawny got a sore throat and had to take a few days off, and that's how we got to get in and work with Keith. Well, I met Jonathan there, and he actually played keyboards on Megaforce, that the title track for a movie, and John and I got to be good friends. The band that, when I joined the band 707, the band had already moved up to the Bay Area, living in Marin County, and John was like, well, man, you need to come out to Nevada where I am. Just getting to know John and moving to that area, one thing just led to another. I started showing up at shows because I'm originally from the Chicago area. And I would come back here just to visit and whatnot, and I ended up seeing Journey in a lot of different venues. And, you just keep showing up, and pretty soon everybody starts recognizing you, even though they don't even know who you are, And that's how I met Herbie. And so eventually, Herbie started listening to the stuff that I had been doing and whatnot, and then I actually met Ross. Ross was the second member of the band that I had met, and we started a band called The View with Prairie Prince from the Tubes and Tim Gorman, the keyboard player from The Who, and Steph Burns, who plays a lot of different groups, but Huey Lewis and the News probably most recently. And that was a band that sort of was the bridge between, I had worked with Steel Breeze for about a year, and when Ross showed an interest in doing some stuff, it was during that time when he kind of left Journey. Him and Steve Smith left Journey, and we just hit it off, and we started writing and working on stuff, and we made one record with that band, and through that we were approaching Herbie as like, hey, why don't you just be our manager? And Herbie was like Herbie, even though he was a big time manager, he was a big time fan. He was a music fan, and he was very supportive, that guiding us, you don't be afraid don't be afraid to make a hit. People are afraid to make hit songs. It's kind of been like that for a long time, where people say, well, I don't know, it's starting to sound a little cheesy. Oh, you mean it's starting to sound like money? You can actually make a living in this business, okay? So Herbie was kind of like just our outside set of eyes and ears. He would look at what we're doing from the outside and then relate it to us. And he kind of got to be someone who I felt like I could trust. And in the music business, that's kind of a hard thing to do. But I felt like, you know what, Herbie's not going to waste words. He doesn't have to. If he thinks you suck, he'll tell you suck. If he thinks you're great, he was just a straight up guy. And once I started working with Ross, like I said, he was the first guy really actually started doing designs of, doing some stuff together. Then Herbie sort of kicked into gear. And they were putting me around people and putting people around me just to, I think, not just to take your temperature. That's what he used to call it. I was checking his temperature, but also to make sure that all of our needs were being met, because I had a family, and, in the music business, that's a tough thing, I guess Herbie always would put it like a successful musician. You know what the definition of a successful musician is? That's someone who can pay his bills. So I think he was always there just to make sure that I was on the right track. And it just kind of came down to where he was sort of thinking, he doesn't have to tell me this, but I know he was trying. He was like, I got to get this guy hooked up with Greg Rollie. I just know it because, looking back, we would end up at the 49er games in one of the owner's box. And it was like, let me tell you, they didn't just put him in an owner's box by chance. Herbie booked the halftime entertainment, but they put him in the owner's box, which was directly side by side with the visiting owner's box. And Herbie was very abrasive man, so if something was happening during the game, he would just have those owners in the next box crawling out of their skin. It was part of psychological warfare, So, and this was during the heyday. This is when, Joe Montana and Young were still trying to sort out their relationship, and you had the big winning team with Ronnie Lott, and you can go down the list of just the best team San Francisco ever had. Even if you hated him, you had to respect him, So coming from Chicago, of course, I was always a Bears fan with a broken heart, except for in '85. They made me feel good in '85, but I was always a broken-hearted Bears fan. So it was really easy to love the 49ers, especially when you're eating, all these really wonderful shrimp and stuff in the owner's box. They spoiled me. But meeting Greg in the owner's box, and I'm trying to remember, before we went on, I was trying to remember about, did I meet Greg first or did I meet him after that? And I actually think I met Greg one time before we met at the 49ers games. I think we did a session for an artist. We were both called in to do background vocals on a session together. And at that time, we kind of traded tapes. I think that's what we did. We traded cassettes of songs that we had written and whatnot. But then once we met at the 49er games, Greg's brother it seemed like we were always at the 49ers and the Rams when the Rams were in L.A. And his brother was kind of like a Rams fan because he lived in L.A. So he would come up, and as I recall, it was almost like Herbie had Greg's brother Steve working us over. Like, hey, you guys ought to get together and write some songs. I think you guys could write some great songs together. And Greg and I would be like, yeah, we could probably do that. And then we come in the next week, we'd be at the game. Hey, did you guys write any songs? And it was like, no, we haven't gotten together yet. And by the third week, Steve was taking his baby brother apart, kind of like, hey, you guys haven't gotten together yet and written songs? Oh, well, maybe you should write some songs, and you could have a band and call your band the Procrastinators. And it was like the next morning, Greg calls me and goes, all right, get over here. We got to write some songs. and so the first two songs we wrote, of course, were Show Me the Way and I've Got a Lot to Learn About Love, which were, two hit songs for us. So,
right.
So
Bob,
that's how I met Herbie. I met Herbie by meeting all of the soldiers that helped make him a multi-gazillionaire.
Bob, questions for Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin, it's great to speak with you, and so many great memories come back. And I want to know more about Rollie, because it was probably I cut my teeth on rock and roll with guys like him in the 70s. I remember Greg with one of the great afros of the 70s, and hearing him play on the old Santana records. I was listening to the Batuka song the other day. I mean, the Abraxas stuff. That stuff that was so intense and ahead of its time. And but tell me more about him as a musician, his personality. Just seemed like he kept a low profile, but a great name in rock and roll.
Well, he did. I think getting to know Greg really well over the course of I don't know how many years. It wasn't long enough, okay, but writing and working on records for maybe the course of 3 to 4 years, somewhere in there. And it seems like it was longer, but it was actually a very limited time. I got to know about his childhood and some things that, where he grew up. In fact, I sometimes I got to pinch myself because, Greg was kind of like one of my heroes too. He's probably 7, 8 years older than I am. And the first time I saw Journey was at the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago. And it wasn't like, it's a pretty small, intimate theater. And, man, those guys came in. This was, I think, right as Perry was coming in the band. And, oh, my God, what an incredible band. I mean, unbelievable band. And, I had a lot of respect for Greg, even before Journey, as Santana. I mean, we all would sing Evil Ways and Black Magic Woman, all the cover bands we ever played in. Everybody, I mean, that was what was all over the radio, And then when I kind of got to hang with him on a daily basis, and the rock star thing, the glitter sort of dies down, and you just start seeing this guy who grew up in the same kind of neighborhoods, who was just a guy that liked to go out and wash his car, and loved his family. I mean, just different perspective than when you were looking in magazines or, how we would buy an album and then you just had to comb through everything on the record, and look at the pictures, read every word just to try to absorb that stuff. And then, like when we mixed one of our Storm records in L.A. on the way home, he was telling me, this is kind of my old stomping ground. We get to, I think, Palo Alto. And I think that's where he said he grew up. Anyway, he says, yeah, it's right off of this exit right here. I said, well, pull over there, man. Pull over. Show me the house where you grew up. He's like, really? You want to see where I grew up? I said, yeah. So we pulled up and, right around the house. I said, pull in the driveway. He's like, I'm not pulling the driveway. I said, well, just pull in the driveway. And so he pulls in the driveway, and I get out of the car. And he's like, where are you going? I said, come on. We're going to go knock on the door. What? I said, come on, man. Get up and walk over here. These people have no idea that you grew up in this house. Dude, they'll never want to move from this house. So we went up, and we knocked on the door. And this, I remember this young lady and this young man came to the door, and I said, I'm sorry to bother you. We're not selling anything. I said, this guy right here, the lead singer of Santana and the original lead singer in Journey, he grew up in this house. And they were like, what? So, this was a dream come true for him. He would never have, I don't think, ever had the guts to knock on the door himself, because it would be like, this is too freaky. I said, man, you know what? Everybody would love to go back to their childhood bedroom where the music started, right? And so she says, well, you want to see your old room? He's like, oh, it'd be great. It was just like watching a little kid walking through the house. And then he was like, oh, over here. Yeah, we just have the couch over here. And this and that. It was explaining to us what his childhood home looked like. And then we went into his bedroom. It was so cool just to be there, to hear the story about when, and it was just marvelous, man. It was marvelous. And I remember one time we were driving around. He had a Camaro. It was like an 80s Camaro convertible, beautiful. Had a great stereo in it. And we were riding around. When we start getting brain freeze, couldn't ride anything. We'd take a ride and put the top down, and ideas would start flowing. And I said, I just had this thought, man, this premonition. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, dude, I saw your son, who at the time, Sean, was a little bitty guy. And now he's a full-blown grown man, taller than him, taller than Greg. And said, I see him standing there telling his two kids and his wife that that's your grandpa right there. And, in the Hall of Fame, and I look over. He's like, "Cut it out, man!" He's got tears rolling down his face. So you get to know somebody, and their desires in life, and what their goals are and stuff. And those are just things you hide. But we really exercised talking about things that we wish best for our kids, and if we were to leave a message in songs for our future family members and stuff, what would that message be? And that kind of stuff is what we wrote into the songs, rather than just boy meets girl, which everybody writes that stuff. We wanted to put something deeper, and a lot of that stuff really was designed to go back and just show those guys at the 49er games that we still got it,
Quickly, Kevin, I just wanted to know, as far as yourself writing songs, say you were writing songs by yourself, not collaborating, was that something you could sit down and hammer one out in a couple hours like we've heard folk tales about, or was it something that would evolve for you?
No, well, I tell you what, I really enjoy collaborating, but I have sat down and written and carved out songs, and sometimes the whole song would drop out in 5 minutes, and sometimes it takes just weeks to really hone in, and and it's like, what is the word I'm looking for? And then you have to almost go back and do it like you're going back to school, and you start researching a word, and then you find another word, and then this changes that, and because you want it to be deep. You want it to be easy to understand. It has to be catchy. It has to be hooky. All those things, But I don't know that you guys wanted to talk about all that stuff. Did you really? I mean, this is a football show, isn't it?
We got a ton of questions.
No kidding.
Well, I hope you guys don't mind, but I have to tell you, man, I've been a little. I love football, and I'm so angry right now, and today I'm thinking about we're going to be talking tonight, and I don't want to throw a wet blanket on over your show, man, but I have to tell you, it's not just me. I mean, it's like everybody I talk to, in the Midwest, everybody I talk to is really, people are really upset. And this is what came to me, man. I guess the songwriter in me, the right words came to me today. Okay? What's the first thing a coach tells a player, even when he's a little kid? This is what's wrong right now going on in the NFL. This is what's wrong. Okay? The first thing they tell you is don't take your eye off the ball, and that's kind of what's going on right now. There's too much emphasis off of the ball, and they're going to lose from that. And I haven't watched one game this year, man, and it's like at first it was killing me, and now it's a principle thing. My country means a lot. I got friends that have lost their lives or loved ones. I think that they're doing it wrong. That's just look, everybody has their own opinion. My sons and I differ because they're so caught up in the game. My parents are both gone now, and the lessons that I learned from them to pass on, part of it right now, man. It's part of it. My lesson to them is the lessons that have been passed on. Too many of them lessons are being neglected and, thrown to the wayside for the fun, happy moment or the big touchdown everybody's waiting for. And I'm going, man, we're losing so much more that's bigger. I'm going to tell you one more thing my dad taught me, and this is why I really believe they're doing it wrong. And I hope some of them are listening, because my dad would always tell me, there's no way you can force somebody to respect you. You have to earn it. You have to earn it. You have to earn their respect. You can't just expect to be respected. These guys have worked hard to get where they're going, and and it breaks my heart, man, because I feel like they're mixing apples and oranges together. This is not the place, and I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket, but I don't know how much time I have to say this. I'm kind of done. Until this is over with, I'm done, and it kills me a little bit, because I love the sport, I love the game, I love to watch the strategy and all that, but they took their eyes off the ball, and the fans see it. I can't understand why they don't see it. So, I mean, you know what? I'm open to listening to negotiation, but at the same time, it's like, for me personally, it's, when my band plays, the song that gets the most crowd participation and clapping and cheering is our rock and roll version of God Bless America. I see people standing and crying, hand over their heart, hats off, and then, these are just common people that might have $10 in their pocket, or that, you know what I mean? It's like, and I see a total different thing at the other end of the spectrum right now. Like, that's not how you gain someone's respect, is by trying to force it. Sometimes You just got to love people and show it through love, and people want to love you back. And, you know, I know it's not an easy thing to answer, but it's a real simple thing for me, and that is that, you know, if I go on stage and I take a knee, that is not what they paid for me to see of me. I try to leave everything I have that day on the stage, and I would feel like personally I let them down because they didn't pay for that when they paid for that ticket to come into my show. So from an entertainment standpoint, that's not entertaining. That makes you feel like, you know, put the picket signs outside if you want to in front of my show. But I'm not going to take a knee, and I think it's wrong. I think people don't have that choice, and the problem is that when they make their choice between watching people take a knee, the choice is I'm not going anymore, I'm not watching anymore when this crap's over with. Not to say that the cause is crap, it's the effect that it's having on people, and that's songwriting 101.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to get them the effect that they really desired in the end. You know.
Yeah.
But
great stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. Kevin, there's so much, to Bob's earlier point, there's so much more we want to get into with you. I hope you'll come back. We hope you'll come back.
Absolutely.
And join us again. So much more.
You won't let me shut up. You just keep me talking, and I haven't even hardly heard your voice.
Those are the best guests, man.
That is the best guest, and that's the best interview, when we shut up and you do the talking. We've learned that a long time ago. The best interviews are when we talk little and you talk a lot.
Well,
that's what our listeners are looking for.
I was listening to the gentleman right before I went on, and I was listening to you talk about his accolades, and, you know, I just heard a humble man there, a humble man who knows his worth. And sometimes that's, when kindness is a mistaken for weakness, and that's a bad thing. So I wish him great fortune and the opportunity to actually lead a team, because there's not weakness there. That kindness, that's a humbleness. That's the salt of the earth. So teams need that. They really do. They need that. They need leadership.
Right.
It's almost like here we go. It's not even the team or the owner that's in the leading point now. It's almost like, hey, well, we have this whole bank of attorneys over here that we pay. What do they have to say about stuff? What do you guys think we should do? And Greg was always the first guy to say, well, you know what those guys, you know why they always tell you got to sue, is because they're just guys out of work unless they got litigation.
Right.
If they ain't fighting somebody, they're in the unemployment line. So, I don't know that I'd want to be listening to those guys through this. I think the best example that we can leave for our kids is show how all these men can work together in spite of all the injustice. In spite. Hey, you know what? I don't think it's right that I was born 5'6". I wish I was 6'5". But you know what? I'm making the best of what I got. I can sometimes sing circles around them 6'5" guys. You know what I mean? I got to sing higher. I got to run faster. That's all.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for your time tonight. We look forward to getting you back on the show real soon. Thank you so much for being here. It's been great talking to you guys.
Let me know when you got a real dead spot. I'll come on there. I'll spark things up for you, brother.
Excellent.
Thank you, Kevin.
Love it.
Rock on, guys. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care, Kevin.
Take it easy.
That is singer-songwriter Kevin Chalfant. And folks, if you haven't listened to the Storm CD lately, I'm telling you, pull that out. I mean, I've got it. It's a mainstay in my car. They sound absolutely fantastic. That CD is absolutely it's fantastic. And I got a lot to learn about love is one of my favorite all-time songs. And what a thrill, Bob, to get to spend some time with Kevin. We got to get him back on the show real soon.
Oh, just his contacts and everyone that he's hung around with, Chris. Being football fans, but we're music fans big time too here, so we have a lot more to talk with him, and we may have to spread it out over 10 shows, but we'll get it done.
There you go. I like that idea.